Today, I'm joined by an incredible leader in the corporate world, Cigi Manning. Cigi has led a high performance team as a vice president at Bell Canada, and Cigi has made a lasting impact in leadership, strategy, and business transformation. Her journey is a testament to resilience, innovation, and the power of intentional leadership. In this conversation, we'll dive into her experiences, lessons learned, and the wisdom she's gained from leading at the top. Get ready for an inspiring and insightful discussion. Cigi Manning, up next. Cigi Manning, welcome to Different Facets of Happiness. Thank you for joining us a second time.
Thank you so much.
I'm not too sure if you realize, but about 6 months ago when you came to my show, your show was one of the highest ratings of my program. We had over 21,000 views. That's phenomenal.
Thank you. Wow, that's great.
I'm so glad you're here. So I had a lot of questions from our YouTube viewers, so I'll do that. And of course, some questions from our studio audience. And thank you so much, studio audience, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll go right into it. So, Cigi, let's start with a bang. In terms of leadership in tech is not a joke.
Yeah.
What's one leadership lesson you've learned the hard way?
I've learned a few the hard way. The first thing that comes to mind is to do big things. I started my career working in process improvement, and I was driving a bunch of great initiatives. We reduced calls to the call centers by like 50%. And I remember going to a meeting one time, and Wade, who some of the audience would know, he's just this brilliant, brilliant man, looked at me and said, "Cigi, when are you going to do something really impactful?" And I was like mortified at the moment because I was just in awe of this man. But it gave me that nod at that moment of like, you can really go big in your role. You don't have to keep the role defined as what it was. And I, had been already prepping some like multi-year ideas at the time, and it gave me that confidence to go and present that. And that really catapulted my career. So that's the biggest one I can think of.
Wow.
Can I add one more? Because there's one I think is really important as well.
Of course.
The other one is to have the A-team.
Agreed.
The A-team. It's really, really important because when you don't, it drains the morale of the team, and you spend a lot of time kind of course correcting or coaching, when you could be pushing performance to the next level. And so I think the other one I would kind of lean on would be to have the best team in your corner.
Yeah, I can completely agree. So many people think leadership is about titles and power. What's the biggest misconception about being a leader?
I think that you know me, and you would know that I fundamentally disagree with that from leadership. I think leadership is about the team, and I think leadership is about empowerment. And for my role as a leader, I just get out of bed every single day thinking about how do I make the team better? What can I bring to upskill the team? What barriers can I, remove so they can start to move mountains faster and better? And so I fundamentally think leadership is about the opposite. I think it's about serving the people.
Yeah. You've had to make big decisions, and have you ever made a tough call that kept you up all night? And can you walk us through that?
Sure. The toughest call is always the people calls, when you have to make calls about people. That absolutely is the hardest thing to do, but made lots of different tech decisions and decisions that have, high stake impacts. And I would say to walk through, I kind of use a framework when making decisions. And I think it's super simple, but I think it's useful for people. Be crystal clear, go deep on the problem that you're trying to solve, fall in love with it, understand it deeply. And then you need to start thinking about what your options are and wargaming kind of some options. But one of the critical steps that I find is missed often is the accountability. Who actually is the approver and owner of the decision?
Yeah.
And then how do we bring forth, the options, the wargame, that piece to drive to a decision? I think there's lots of processes you can use to make decisions. I think it's important to consult before you get there, but also get votes to come in so you have different ways of making decisions. But the last step that I think is extra critical, there's 2 or 3 things once you've made the decision, is that you have to communicate the decision and make sure there's good awareness and understanding of the rationale, the next steps, the key milestones. Who do you need to communicate to, how, when is super important. And then I think the last stage is just checking and adjusting, or like reflecting on the decision you made and looking kind of forward and backwards to see how that is going. So I kind of try and follow a structured process every time just to make sure that we've covered all of our bases.
Yeah, well, you said it. Communication is key.
Always.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So women in leadership sometimes are held to different standards. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. Have you ever faced unfair scrutiny or resistance as a leader? And how did you handle it?
Yeah. Yeah, all the time, I would say. And I actually think women are the worst to each other. I think we're tough on each other, and it's frustrating. But I also think scrutiny can be a superpower. It means that you show up more prepared, you show up more resilient, you can show up more strategic in what you're doing. And so, if you can channel that pressure and use it as fuel to think more effectively about how you show up as a leader and ensure that leadership then is based on merit and not, based on bias. I think the important thing in this conversation is actually to change the narrative a little bit and stop thinking about the victim mentality and thinking about power and change and how do we drive
Yeah.
change forward. And so, yeah, I like to shift the conversation around just delivering results, mentoring the future women in leadership,
Yes.
and also thinking about the workplace culture that we're creating. And we have a role in creating that.
Yeah. Agreed. What's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever received? And what's the one piece of bad advice that women should ignore?
The best piece of advice that I received was actually just to lean into my strengths. I've shared this story with you before, but I had a meeting with the CEO. I was told by a few people that I had to be more assertive, more aggressive, which to me is inauthentic. That's not my style. That's not the way I get work done. And I met with our CEO and he kind of challenged me on it and said, like, why are you working on this behavior that we have too much of and it's not you? And so it was a good reflection point for me to really think about my strengths and what got me there as a leader. And so now I ignore that bad advice. So that's the good and the bad advice all in one answer. Is the bad advice was to be more assertive and aggressive, which is not authentic to my best self. The good advice was to really just lean in on those things that were working for me and do
Yeah.
more of them and figure out how do I counter some of those other behaviors with those strengths that I had. So
Okay. Okay. Now, this next question, I believe this came from some of these questions have come from, of course, our YouTube viewers and
okay.
from our audience here. So if I asked the people you work with to describe you in 3 words, what do you hope they'd say?
Well, they're here. A bunch of them are here, so we could ask. You guys give me the nod or the clap if I get this right or wrong. I'm going to do them in order. So
Okay,
this is how
sure.
well I think they know me and I know them. The first one would be trust. They're clapping already. The second one would be empowerment, and and the third would be collaboration. That would be my top 3.
Yeah. Oh, definitely collaboration.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And thank you, audience. Women in tech are still underrepresented at the top. What's one outdated belief about women in leadership that we need to crush once and for all?
I would use too collaborative sometimes. Like I
Yeah.
really actually think that's a strength that women need to lean into and that we can leverage more in leadership. And I think it's something that people in organizations don't recognize enough of the strength of that power of how we create, empathy for each other and create
Yeah.
conversation through those paths. The other would be family. I still think there's that belief that you can't have a family and a career at the same time. And that one's maybe not a belief. I think that's structural. That's a structural thing that needs to get fixed and changed for women. And you can see women going other paths, finding new businesses and new ventures to create that flexibility for themselves. But I think as organizations, there's a lot more we could do to make that space for women to crush that belief.
This is another question that came from a viewer. Do you feel that women are afraid of being judged as being too feminine?
I think you get both. I think if you're too feminine, and I had this feedback to me was like, don't wear makeup, put your hair up, don't leave your hair down. I didn't have to get the clothing one because I only wear black. So that like I naturally fit in. But you get both sides of it. If you're too soft or you speak like a child, like I was told once you got to talk more like your mom. And I thought that was good feedback actually was trying to help me just find my power at the table. So I didn't take it kind of the wrong way. But you do get coached to say don't do these things and don't stand out as a female. And then on the flip side, if you're more assertive and aggressive, then you get the other term
Yeah.
that I also think is not fair. And so it's a constant balance where you're trying to figure out how do I play these. But again, I really think those are also victim mentality. I think if you can find your strength and focus on it, it's well received from my experience in driving more collaboration and consensus building across the teams. And I think we just need to lean more into those
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah. You've been in rooms where major decisions are made. Because of that, what's your advice for women who want to be heard but not just seen?
Heard but not seen. I would say 3 things come to mind quickly on that. The first would be to come prepared. Have a perspective, have a point of view. I've been in a lot of meetings where people show up looking for you to make the decision, but they haven't done their homework on what is the background. So in the moment as a leader, you're sitting there processing all that information in real time, trying to figure out what are all the questions I need to ask to make sure that they've thought this through. And, I don't think that's fair to put that on the leader in the moment. I think it's your job as the driver of a decision to come prepared with a perspective, a point of view, a reco that you're going to make. The second thing I would say to that, it's another P, would be just be to prep. Like, part of preparation is prepping the questions and the answers that you think are going to be asked to you. It's practicing your pitch. And then I think the third is really just preserving your space,
Yeah.
making sure that if you want to be heard and seen, you have to set the tone for yourself to be heard and seen. You could get interrupted, but you can always say, please let me finish. And I think for other women in the room, we also need to make space that, so-and-so has something to say. I think you have a perspective on this. There's a lot we could do to help set each other up better for that. And so I think those would be the three things that come to mind, is just really to prepare, make sure that you practice and think through all the questions that you might have, and then find your space.
Yes. Yes. What's one power move women should start making in their careers to claim their leadership space?
I would say leaning in comes to mind. I was guided many times in my career, actually, and I think I ignored probably good advice, but I was guided many times to not put my hand up for certain opportunities and to just let them pass, because it was seen that these opportunities were not set up for success. I looked at it differently. It was like, whether a man or a woman's going to take this position, or someone different in the org, it's not set up for success. And so it's my job to make that visibility of what the conditions are for this thing to be successful if I'm going to take that on. And so I think that would be the thing I would say, is really just lean in, take those opportunities. Don't assume that people know that you want them. I think that's your responsibility. So
I agree with that completely. If you could rewrite the rules of leadership for women, what's one rule you throw it completely?
it's not a rule. I think it's a belief again, but that there's a glass ceiling would be the first thing. I think that's a limiting belief for women, that there's a ceiling there. It's a common term. We had a very senior woman left our organization a couple of years ago, and the amount of emails I got as another kind of strong female in the org was overwhelming, actually, of people just concerned that there was still a cap and a ceiling. So I think we need to throw that out. If you can't find a seat at the table, go, build a different table would be the first thing that comes to mind for me.
I think we're building different tables right now.
I hope so. I hope we are. Yeah.
What's one superpower women don't leverage enough in tech?
Our inherent knowledge, I guess, of unconscious bias. Tech is scaling right now at a unprecedented, crazy rate. It's also being influenced by a lot of things like AI and other aspects that are evolving quickly. And the question of ethics and inclusivity and diversity come to play a lot. And I think women, especially, and people of color, women, all of the underrepresented groups, have a real role to play in establishing those frameworks and those guidelines that we need right now, that are just really, really important. And so if you're looking for somewhere to shine, I would say now's the time to shine, because we just, as women, I think we nurture and we have that inherent kind of outlook for the good of the community, more than the hunter-gatherer kind of perspective. We're just looking to build community and make sure we look out for each other. And so I think you could shine now as a woman in that space.
Have you ever been underestimated? How did you turn that into, instead of frustration, how did that become fuel for you?
Yes.
You've been underestimated, of course. Yes.
I think every day. I think I show up assuming that I'm underestimated. And I did that because A, I was female in a predominantly male organization and sector, really, in tech. And B, because I was younger than most by about 10 years. So I would show up to meeting rooms in black, of course, but, a bunch of dudes in gray suits and gray hair, more mature, and I would say maybe more experienced in the industry than I was. But some of those meetings taught me how to hold my own space. I had one that comes to mind, actually, and it was exactly that. It was 8 other dudes and I. And they showed up really telling me what our organization needed. They weren't asking questions. They were just very clear that they knew what we needed, and they were so far off. And I was mad. To be honest, I was mad that we wasted the time. I didn't feel like I was getting heard. And so from that moment on, with that group and others, I was very clear about the expectations coming in, tried to be very clear about what the business opportunity was, so they really understood where we were coming from and what my expectations were of our engagements. And so it taught me a lot about just holding my own, I guess, and holding my space that way.
Yeah.
There's actually a moment I think of where Blake, great sponsor of mine, did something for me. And I don't think he knows to this day that he did it, but I remember the person called me and said, "You have a real champion in your corner." And it was a large named organization that was a core partner of ours. was coming in and we were looking for a new piece of technology. And before the meeting, he called them and said, I know she's young. Don't underestimate her in that meeting. She's the chief driver in that meeting. She knows exactly what we need to do. And it was a woman that he had called. She was our account manager. And she called me and said, did you know that he thinks this about you? She's like, I'm so excited to meet you and spend this time with you. And I had no idea. I don't think he knows to this day what the impact it had for me, but it really just set the tone as a sponsor for me in that room as well. So we also need to think about that and do more of those things as leaders.
We do. We do. So let's pivot for a second. Let's talk about the art of resilience.
Okay.
Every leader faces setbacks. Tell us about a time you faced a major challenge in your career and what happened and how did you bounce back?
It's right now. It's not a time. It's right now. I think a lot of people would shy away from maybe answering this question the way I'm going to answer it for you, but I was actually impacted by a restructure in our organization about 6 months ago. But if you rewind that 24 months, all of my discussions with my peers and some advisory board groups that I'm a part of and fortunate to be a part of, I was talking about my next career opportunity. What is the next thing going to be for me? Because I'd been in the same org doing similar work for some time. And I was looking for that new thing. And I was exploring the idea of other industries, other parts of our organization. There's tons of opportunities to kind of flex across. I was exploring same industry, different organization, even through some kind of poking that had come my way. And I stayed because we were going through some challenging times and I wanted to just be loyal, I guess, to the team. But fast forward to 6 months ago, I was impacted by the restructure. And honestly, it's probably the biggest gift. I look at it that way, that I've ever been given an opportunity in life to spend the time. You don't always get the time to actually think about what is it that I want to do next? What do I want my life day to look like? And so fast forward to today, actually, I've had a brilliant opportunity come forth through my network and peers. Someone that I cherish working for and with in the past asked if I would come partner with them at their organization. And so I'm doing that now, learning a new industry and proving that I can, repeat success. And so it's just created this new opportunity for me to learn something new that I was already hungry for previously. And I couldn't be, feeling more fortunate than now. So.
Wonderful. So leadership comes with pressure, as you know. How do you handle stress, especially when everything seems to be on your shoulders?
Preparation. My answer to this is always preparation. I just say it all the time. I think preparation is key to things. I think you need to war game different solutions and options in your head all the time, starting to think about how do you break the problem down into smaller, bite-sized chunks that you can manage. And then on those problems, how do you kind of war game your way out of them? And I think the more you practice that skill, the more you can rely on it when you really, really need it. And so the biggest thing for stress management for me is really just trying to, break it apart, make it smaller and more manageable so you can start to get progress. Once you get the few small wins going, then the snowball starts to happen where it turns into, a bigger mountain that you're moving. But I think that's key.
Have you ever had a moment of self-doubt in your mind, and how have you silenced that doubt?
Probably every other week. Something happens, right, where it doesn't go as planned. Like things happen. And the silencing the doubt's important. I think for me, I just reflect on the work that I did to get to that spot and remind myself how hard it was. I would think back to the other moments where you had self-doubt and that you proved yourself wrong and just lean on those things. I think the other thing I would say that I did when I was first taking on new roles, I had this weird habit of when I got to the office, I would actually do positive affirmations in my head on the way in the door. I'd be like, you got this today. You're going to do X, Y, and Z today. I would think about kind of my to-do list. And I would just remind myself, these are the things you need to get done and you can do it. You can do this. And so I think just saying the right things to yourself is really important.
Yeah. And that, as you said, positive affirmations shifts your mindsets.
100%.
Right? Yeah. So these are questions that came in regarding keeping up with trends.
Okay.
The tech industry never slows down, as you know. And how do you stay ahead of trends and remain competitive? And how do you balance learning new skills while also staying focused on the bigger picture as a leader? And if you could instantly master one future tech trend, Matrix style, what would it be and why?
That's a long question.
I know it is. I know.
Okay. I'm going to try and break it into parts. So the first was really around how do you stay on the trends?
Yeah.
I read a lot. So my boyfriend and I actually, he's better at this than I am, but we have a habit every night of just reading for half an hour to kind of decompress from the day. So I try to find things that are interesting of me, which is always around tech trends or in the industry or leadership. So reading is important. I think, the internet is a beautiful thing as well. There's nothing you can't find there if you're looking for trends and what's going on in the world. I also try it. So as an example, when Chat GPT came out, I was right in there, building my niece and nephew a kid's book. I was trying to use it for, professional things to check the checker in Excel and build PowerPoint presentations and just kind of like make me more impactful, I guess. And so I think the first thing I would say is just, the term go to Gemba, like try it out, like go do it. Remind me the next question was if you could
Yeah, if you could instantly
Matrix
master.
style,
Yeah.
instantly master. I would say, I don't know how to answer this one. I would say an AI master or maybe like a no code, low code. The team that's here would appreciate that master of some sort because we sent oodles of money on things that I think the technology nowadays is evolving to ways where we can be so much more effective at a fraction of the cost. So I would love to just rewind a little bit and become a master of those, maybe even sooner, to see how we could really optimize. Because you get kind of down in the weeds on your day to day, and it's taking advantage of those new things that does set you apart. And so I think you need to dedicate practice to that. So I just used to use a calendar as well. So I would set time, like Friday afternoons was kind of my block to do a bit of that research and set the strategy a little bit differently or think about the upskilling and the tools that the team would need to do things differently. So I think that's the other way is to just make time for it.
Okay. So what's one emerging technology that excites you the most?
I should probably say something about, I'm thinking telco from my background just on connectivity. But I think for me, the most exciting one at the moment is actually AI. I think it's I know everyone's using the term now, but I just think it's such a great technology that gives us so much power down to the end user. You kind of let the machine do the deep thinking and the crunching and bring so much kind of goodness to your fingertips. I was using it a couple of weeks ago just to write business proposals and, look at business evaluations for ideas that I had that were kind of spinning in the head. I just think it can do so many things from, content creation to conversationally. I'm excited about where it's going to go. So I would say that.
Okay. Well, speaking about AI still,
Okay.
what's your advice for professionals who feel overwhelmed trying to keep up with the constant changes in tech?
Go to Gemba. Go to the place that the work is getting done and try it. I think that's it. It's just that simple is you got to really try and play with the tools and see where they work.
Yeah.
It's not always going to work out, but it is going to guarantee that you're going to learn something and you're going to start to figure out where you go next from
Yeah.
there. And so I think that whole process of actually, follow me homes and walking the floor and spending time with the teams trying it and experimenting, I think that's really important. It's part of the mindset that you have to teach the teams, though. They kind of need forgiveness or like the okay to go and try and do things differently and know that you're going to fail likely at doing them and make space for that. And I don't always think that organizations have the failure space available, but we need to do more of that so you can try and figure things out. And we'll see that, you start to blossom from there. It's not so much a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned earlier you're going through a transition with your career. So let's talk about the legacy of
Okay.
Cigi Manning for a
Oh,
second.
boy.
So looking back, what's one bold decision that changed the course of your career?
There was a tech decision, a really tough one. I won't evolve the details, but a big tech decision probably 5 years ago now that we embarked on that journey. And I was super vocal about the direction that we were going and recommended a very different path to the one that we were on at the time. And I remember in that moment, there was actually a meeting with the most senior team that we had there. And one of the members actually called me. I challenged him in the room, backed up with, of course, data. And he called me after, and I was like, oh gosh, he's so mad. He was like, that was awesome. You found your voice. I've been waiting for you to show up. Like, this is the CG that I've been waiting for. And I was like, oh, it is. That moment stuck with me. But what stuck with me more after his comment was actually the team impact that it had. So we actually didn't decide to go in the direction that I was saying at the time. So I unfortunately was not fully successful. We did go there after.
Yeah.
So it just took time. The org wasn't ready to quite go there at that moment. It took a little bit more time and convincing to get to where we needed to go. But what did happen was then I had the groundswell. So people were talking about this kind of push and the team started to trust more in the direction that we were going. And I was able to kind of rally the troops, which then resulted in the outcome that I was hoping for longer term.
Oh, okay. Okay. So success means different things to different people,
Yep.
as you know. What's your personal definition of success and has it changed or evolved over time?
Big time.
How?
My definition of success would be that you've achieved something that you've set out to do. That's, I think, the measure of success is have you achieved the milestones in some sort of target that you've set for yourself? When I first started working, if I think of it in a business context, that was always that business outcome. Did we achieve the business outcome? Yes or no? Were we doing the results that we said we were going to do? Over time, as you grow in leadership, it becomes less and less about the results, which are important. That's just your job and you have to hit them. But it becomes a lot about the milestones and those little micro mini moments where people are doing things that were hard for them and you're recognizing it and you're kind of coaching and encouraging the team to do more things than they thought possible. I would say personally for me, it also changed. I think for me, success is really just having the financial flexibility and freedom to live the life that I would like to live. And that life vision's changed over time.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we set out to like think that we need the big house or the fancy car or all these other things. And then you realize that's not happiness. That's not what creates a fulsome life. And maybe we got it wrong. Like you worked, I don't say a little too hard because I'm the first person that just, I love to work. I don't want to give the wrong message, but the other stuff's just as important and it really needs to be set up well. And so I think that's also part of it is making sure that you have that balance between personal and professional,
Yeah.
happiness.
So we're going to pivot again. If you were in tech, what career or different career do you think you'd be thriving in right now?
I'd love to ask the audience people right now this question. Maybe we'll ask them after. But I would say, well, first off, if you called my boyfriend now, he'd be like, she keeps talking about owning a farm and like going back to my roots. I grew up on a farm and I keep teasing him that we're going to open this like fun farm and feed our local community. That's not it. I think actually my skills that would naturally fit in another organization would be something in disaster recovery or planning or negotiation where you're, rallying a group towards a cause or you're finding like common ground and consensus. And it's high stakes, like high stakes situations where you need to enable, a group of people to do something differently. So either of those I would say would be exciting. I would love to do that.
So what's one non-tech skill or hobby
Okay.
that surprisingly makes you a better person?
Ooh. I would say sports. Yeah. I have this incredible sports team. They were not just like, peers and line mates. They're very, very close friends. And it's an avenue that I, rely on to have an outlet, for those tough days. It just feels good to like not think about the rest of your day. But it's also a support system that I lean on all that. Like they keep me belly laughing on a daily basis, thinking about some of the moments that we had together. If we're going through something tough together, we have one another to lean on. And so that would be an outlet that I think has made me a much better. I just honestly don't know what I would do without them.
Yeah. If you could trade lives with one person for just one day,
Okay.
who would it be and why? Only one day.
I'd pick one of these guys. I would say, I just read the book, The Worlds I See by Fei Li. It's the first thing that comes to mind because it's fresh. I just think she's fascinating. I think, as an immigrant moving to a different country and then evolving into a place where she developed the, AI, Stanford Institution for AI through ImageNet and different things that she established. I think her background would just be fascinating all the way from where she started to, where she is now and just championing some of the ethics and policies that are going on in tech. So
Yeah.
I would pick her. I also just listened to Melody Hobson Masterclass.
Yeah. If
anyone has not listened to this woman speak before, please go check it out. She also was just phenomenal. And like she actually went through decision making as a process. And I loved it. So that would be the other.
You wouldn't choose Trump, for one day? No?
Maybe so I could make a change. You could pick either one of those guys and I would happily fill those seats.
Let's talk guilty pleasures for a moment.
Okay.
What's something completely unexpected that you nerd out on in your free time?
Cooking.
Oh, okay.
That's not what you were expecting. It's the first thing I think of. I don't think I have any super nerdy habits. I like to read, but I love cooking, actually. I find it's just a creative outlet that keeps me fueled and nourished, but also I enjoy that time where I'm trying not to cut your finger off and focus on making it tasty and not thinking about that. I think it's important to have things that you can decompress on. So I would pick cooking.
Sure. And thinking about...
Sorry, that was not a tech answer.
That's okay. But thinking of decompressing. So
okay.
I'm going to go to a section called Would You Rather? Would you rather have a personal assistant for life or unlimited free first-class travel?
Personal assistant for life.
I agree with that.
No doubts. No doubts.
Okay. Would you rather wake up with perfect knowledge of every programming language or be able to predict the next big tech trend before anyone else?
Predict. Make that money.
Would you rather have dinner with your biggest professional idol or spend a day with your childhood hero?
The hero. 100%.
Okay.
You pick the other?
Oh.
Jackie.
Would you rather live 100 years in the future or 100 years in the past?
Future.
Why?
I think it'd be fascinating to see where we're headed.
Yeah.
I think the past would be super relaxing. I'm not sure I could handle the female setup at that time. To be honest, I'd probably have a heart attack on first hour, but I think the future would be super fascinating. I am not going to be cleaning and doing that's not my strength. I'm not well domesticated.
Okay. And would you rather always know the right answer in meetings or always deliver the perfect joke at the perfect time?
Perfect joke, perfect time. One of our leaders actually had that habit where he had this cheeky joke element, and I just think it lightened the room all the time. I don't think he realized how important it was to create that different mood.
So let's talk about big picture stuff. If the world stopped using technology for just about 24 hours,
Mhm.
what would be the first thing that you would do?
Go to the cottage. Having undistracted, is that a word? Undistracted time with
Yeah.
my loved ones at our favorite place would be incredible. I actually, in October when I was impacted, I had a flight to Switzerland booked right away and got on this beautiful 10-day trip in the mountains, and it was the first time I didn't have emails flying in and could actually relax and focus. It was the most relaxed I've been
I saw
probably
the
in my
photos.
life.
They were beautiful.
It's such a stunning country. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
lovely. So I would do that.
Okay. What's one belief or piece of advice you used to swear by, but have now completely changed your mind about it?
I used to believe in being customer first. That was kind of ingrained in me through a bunch of our leaders, which I don't disagree with the sentiment. For me, though, it's people first. It's not customer at the expense of people. I think you have to find that balance of how do you get your people and your customers humming in the same direction and enabling your people to do the right things for your customers. I don't think it comes at the cost of burning people out for the customer, or even sometimes crazy customer requests are not always right. And so I've kind of switched terms, and I know that'll be shocking for some to hear when I'm just such a big customer champion, but I'm an even bigger people advocate. I think you have to really enable your teams, and they'll always do the right thing for the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could put one message on it, this is not my question, by the way. This is a
Okay,
question from a viewer. So
I can't wait.
if you could put one message on a giant billboard in Times Square for millions to see, what would it say?
Ooh, Times Square.
Yeah.
I had my face up there once. I found this cool T-Mobile store, and you can go in and they would put your face up.
Oh,
The message I would want the world to see would be tough things and times are tough, but you're tougher. I think it's important that people have, as the positive affirmations that I spoke of earlier, just someone in their corner telling them that you can go do it. And also someone in their corner telling them, if you try it and you fail, I'll catch you. I just think it's important for us to kind of build up that resilience within people. And so as a first slogan, I don't know if I just coined that, but that's what I would put.
okay. Well, what's one small everyday habit that has made a huge difference in your happiness or success?
I would say pick the right partner, folks. That is really, really important. I know it's not a habit. Mine came along with some great habits. He is just incredible on kind of the health, fitness, decompressed mental break that was really needed for me because I've really ignored that for a long time. And then we have dogs, of course. And so having that habit of just taking that break and going out a couple times a day to walk the dog for me for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Sometimes I'm on a call, but most times I try and just really block that out where I can not think and create space then for better thinking later. And so having that kind of period of time where it's just about me and mindfulness is really important.
Yeah. What's one moment in your life where you thought, I will never forget this for as long as I live? I'm hoping you're going to say it's right now, CG.
Right now, I will not forget this, Jackie. This one's not a personal one. So maybe I'm going to go off on the wrong place that you're hoping me to go here. But I think at this moment, we were trying to stand up agile in the organization. There is a business connection here, which is trying to get a huge body of people, 1,500 people, to start humming in a different direction together and feel comfortable with that kind of concept of just go try it, fail, let's figure it out. It's not all super clear right now, but we can start to work our way through it. And we were at the cottage, and it's funny, kids just do the things. And my niece, we were out and she was water skiing. So picture a 2-year-old water skiing behind a sea-doo, and she fell off. And I was mortified. I was like, oh my God. I dove in, I went for her, get to her, and she's laughing. And she's like, that was so fun. I know what to do now. And then I had that moment. I always have those, like, when you're washing your hair moments where I was like, she has got it. She said she knows what to do now because she tried it and she was going to do it. And so it connected for me because on the way up to the cottage, I was listening to a podcast as well from Brené Brown and Adam Grant. And they were talking about the pancake concept of like your pancake, your first one is never a perfect pancake. You got to pour a second and third pancakes and then they're better. And so those two things just came into this moment for me where it was like, I got to create air cover and space for the team to know that they can go and experiment and try stuff. And also just think about the pancake. And so we did that, and that became a term that the teams kind of picked up and rallied around.
Okay.
So my 2-year-old just, they taught me something all in that moment.
So let's talk about final thoughts for CG. So, and what's next for you?
All right.
If we sat down for this interview 10 years from now, what's one thing you hope that you'd have accomplished by then?
This team's going to fall off their chairs over there. Watch this. A family. So I've shared with you before that I believed in my gut that I couldn't do the career goals that I had with a family at the same time, which is unfortunate because I saw people doing it. I didn't think it was kind of where I needed to be at that moment. So I would say family is kind of on the mind. I would like to, get that done and have one myself. The second would be a new career path. So seeing, me flourish and succeed in a different or second career would be the second. And then a lot of adventure and travel. I love to travel. And so that would be kind of the 3 things I hope I could share with you if we do this again.
Okay.
Let's put it in the calendar for 10 years from now.
We will.
Okay.
If you had to sum up your life philosophy in just one sentence, what would it be?
Work hard, play harder, I think. And I love to work as much or I think more than the next guy or gal. And so I think there's just got to be a balance, and you really have to think about the legacy that you want to leave behind. And unless you're like Gandhi or, someone like that that's doing really incredible, work, humanitarian type work, no one ever puts like Bob was a great lawyer on your tombstone. And so it's really about those like the dates and that dash in the middle of the tombstone, like how did you live, I think is really important. And so I think working is important. So you got to work really hard to achieve the things that you want to, but also you got to find the balance to play hard as well and find that time to enjoy life, the good stuff that's what we're all here for.
That's right. Enjoy, learn, and help others as well. So my last question to you, CG, what's next for you, and how can we follow along on your journey?
Oh, you'll be the first to know, I guess. I don't know what's next. I'm really excited about it. From a career perspective, I'm exploring, all the options that are available. I'm really excited about the work I'm doing now, but you can follow next through hopefully on your podcast, seeing this playback, but also just on any of the socials, LinkedIn, all of those places. I'm available there. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Cigi Manning.
Thank you.
What an amazing conversation with Cigi. Her insights on leadership, career growth, and navigating the corporate world are truly invaluable. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to share it with someone who needs to hear this. And as always, keep pushing yourself, stay aligned with your purpose, and own your next move. You're watching Different Facets of Happiness. I'm Jackie Denise.